I'm Eera.
And what do you do with keyboards?
I play keyboards in Skepticism.
I'm Matti and I'm the vocalist in Skepticism.
I'm Lasse and I play drums.
The drums, I don't mean to say that they sound like folk metal, but they sound like a very old way. You know, even the way it sounds on the record, the equalization of the drums, it almost sounds like they're sometimes very distant, sometimes almost mythical, if you understand.
The drumsticks are very heavy. That makes the sound. And maybe the style how I play.
I asked before if I'm correct in thinking that there's no bass, and maybe this is a question for the keyboard player. What was your answer?
Yeah, there's no bass player. Bass parts are played with the keyboards, with the pedal board. It's kind of, that's one of the reasons it's played like more in an organ, pipe organ style than normal keyboards, so to say. It's kind of, when I think of it, in the early stage of the band, we had two guitars, bass, singer and drummer, and when the bass player left, we had to kind of rethink things. And roughly at those times, I switched to keyboards, took on the bass lines as well, and also Lasse developed the current playing style and equipment he plays with. Kind of after the first release, the 7-inch EP, we did these things to kind of create the current soundscape we have.
I get the feeling that you never formed Skepticism to be a top 40 band. How has life been in the metal world for Skepticism?
Kind of, it would be foolish to try and make a living out of this kind of thing. We just do it because we like it, and that's why we have been doing it for more than 20 years, and we plan to do it for more than 20 years more. So kind of if you try to make a living and insisted on having a style like this, it would be impossible. So it's better just to, if you want to play music like this, just to play the music and see what comes. That's what we are doing.
There is doom that is very sorrowful. There is doom that is atmospheric. But there are some Skepticism parts that I call lifeless. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, it really gives the impression of barren, empty. Would you like to talk about that quality in your music?
I'm having a hard time understanding your question, but kind of, yeah, it's the way I see it is often people ask about sorrow or whatever, sadness and emptiness, but on the other hand, when I think of the music like that, I think it in a way that people like different kinds of styles in other areas of life as well. I just like music like this, so kind of pleasant music, it's slow and dark. And it's kind of, it has nothing to do with depression or sadness or whatever, it's just the kind of music that feels good. Kind of returning to your question on the lyrics, it's the main point of most of the lyrics is not to say too much. Kind of, the lyrics are quite open so that you can understand them in your own way, and it's usually different than we was thought of writing them. So kind of the lyrics try not to just point somewhere, but not to say too much.
I never ask a band what are your influences, and I certainly wouldn't ask that of Skepticism because when you started, nobody sounded like you. But are there doom bands that you enjoy, or do you keep closed from the scene?
I don't have any particular band. I listen all kinds of metal music, so when it's good, it's good. You don't have to make a mark out of it, what band is it or what kind of music it is.
Have you met a fellow Finn, Jarno from Shape of Despair?
No, I don't understand. What did you...
You never met Jarno from Shape of Despair, a Finnish band?
No, I listen all kind of metal music.
But yeah, I recommend that you listen to Shape of Despair. I was very surprised that you were playing live, and then I looked on YouTube that there is a very well-produced live song, and you told me off camera that the next album will be also a DVD. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, it's what we did in January this year was we wrote 6 new songs for a new album. We played them live for the first time in Turku, Finland. We recorded that, shot it on DVD with 5 cameras, and it will be released as a new album in September this year. So basically it's all new songs, new album, directly recorded live and on video. So kind of the idea there was that in the early years we were mainly a studio band. We just made new albums, never played live. 15 years ago we started playing live again and thought that, well, it was actually better to play live than to play in the studio. And kind of the last years have confirmed that we are mainly a live band now. So the new album called Ordeal will capture that in a way. And we played one song from that at Death Fest yesterday, and all 6 songs and the DVD will be released in the fall. There will also be a vinyl plus DVD set in it. So basically we've become a live band after being a studio band in the early years, and the new album kind of underlines that for us at least.
Would you like to talk about your split from Redstream? And I don't mean to say this as a question for troublemaking.
Yeah, well, there's no drama there. It's we are thinking of releasing the new album roughly a year ago, and of course first talked with Redstream with our plans, and well, Patrick said they are not going to be releasing new albums anymore, so it was easy. And then we started looking for a new label, as we are doing something a bit different, direct live album. As the first thing, we preferred to find a Finnish label, and we did. It's called SWAT Records, which is a label focusing on vinyl releases. So has been good so far. So as we speak now, the CDs, DVDs and vinyls are being printed, and it will be released in a couple of months.
I usually don't ask questions that are temporary. I usually ask questions that are eternal, but I'm curious, how did the crowd react to you yesterday? Because I'm sure that there are many people who have never heard of Skepticism before who saw you for the first time.
When I think of it, Skepticism in the summer, outdoors, broad daylight. That's quite unusual for us, but we've done it now. I don't actually know how the crowd reacted. It didn't seem different to me from the usual.
Yeah, I think afterwards when I get the feedback, it was quite good. People enjoyed our music quite a lot, and there was some people who came quite far to see us. So it was nice, and the reaction is quite the same when we are playing, that people actually listen more than just headbang or shout or something like that.
Have you ever seen or heard of the band Esoteric from England?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen them live?
Yeah.
And that was the first band I saw where the crowd was almost like a mystic circle. It was almost the closest I saw to worship of a band. And I was wondering if the same happened in your live performances, where people were just awe-struck.
Yeah, that's quite normal
atmosphere in our gig. People just listen and focus on being themselves. So.
I've never asked this question of any band, but I am curious in the case of Skepticism of how you actually formed. That was always a foggy area. How did Skepticism become a band?
Well, Jani and Lasse have known each other since they were 8 years old, I think. They've known me since we were 10. And we've been friends since then. When we were roughly 15 or so, Jani and Lasse started playing together. Lasse on drums and Jani on guitar. And they were looking for another guitarist. They tried a couple, but it didn't work. Then I had started playing guitar, and they asked me to join the band even if I couldn't play, but they were kind of thinking of it in a way that they need to find a guy that they can tolerate for years. And I joined and learned to play, and then we were looking for a vocalist, and we knew a guy who had a really loud and strong voice, but hadn't been singing a lot. We asked him to join, and he did. And this was all in the early 90s. We got these 4 guys and a 5th guy, the bass player, in the beginning of 92. The bass player left since, but us 4 have been playing in this band since then. Jani and Lasse have been playing in other bands as well, and Matti has been singing in another band. But I've never played in any other band than Skepticism, and I don't believe I will. So basically it's kind of rather than normal forming a band and playing with it, it's a kind of a lifestyle thing, at least for me. I've been doing it as long as I remember, and I probably will be doing it as long as there are enough members alive to play with.
The vocals are very powerful, yet you do not show off the full power. In the future, will there be a time when we see an enraged vocal performance?
I don't know. I try to keep the vocals kind of inside the melody of the song, so that's why I don't want to get the rates to get too rates or too loud or something like that, because I want to keep the harmony inside. But maybe in the future is different kind of things, and maybe in the new album might be something different also. So I don't know.
It's always impressive when someone has the power but plays it down, doesn't show off. So I was wondering one day if we will see that power in its full glory.
When you look up and listen to Matti on the shows nowadays, and when you compare the older albums to the new ones, his singing is more physical to me. I think nowadays he kind of sings with the whole body, not just the throat. And in that sense, I think he's using more power than you would imagine. It just doesn't look like he's kind of freaking out or running around, but he's just singing strongly.
The production of Skepticism albums has always been different. The newer albums have a lot more, they're more clear, but they're still very different. So when you go to record an album, is there anything special that you tell the engineer about how you want it to sound?
No, but I think you mean Alloy is much more clearer than the past ones. But I think mainly that's because of the studio work and that guy who was working with us in that sense. Because the old ones are made in studios that those guys don't understand metal at all, or something like that, and that might be affecting the sound a bit. But but still all the albums are more or less what we wanted it to hear. So if it's too dark, then we can only blame ourselves. So
If I may reveal, my first Skepticism song was "Sign of a Storm," and what captured my interest at first was the drums sounded like they were very distant. There were a lot of things going on in my head, like a story happened in my head, and that's when you know it's good doom. But then there was a climax in the song. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, the way it built up, and then it had a very melancholy ending. I thought it was mastery, musical mastery. Is that a special song to you, or does it not make any difference between that and other songs?
That's one of the songs we wrote for the first album after having recorded the tape that had 4 songs in it. And I remember the first time we played the main riff at the rehearsal room, and kind of just the first time with guitar, drums and keyboards, and it sounded right the first time. Kind of it didn't need any work. And at that time of our lives we rehearsed all the time. It was like 4 times a week, so kind of building up emotions like that, and kind of having the easy ending in there were things that just came naturally when you just played and kind of improved the song little by little. So I wouldn't say it's irrelevant or kind of like any other song. We chose it as the first song of the first album in purpose. So there's a lot of kind of a lot of impact in there in the song to what happened after that.
Yeah, and for me, all the songs has different meanings for me. So Storm is one of the songs where at that time I thought that I would really need to push a little bit for the vocals, because it's so massive at times, that song, that I don't want to get stomp on the feet of the guys, and that's why I remember rehearsing. I was rehearsing a different kind of grunge style to push it out different kind of ways, so I could play a part in that role. So.
Well, I'm very happy that that was the first Skepticism song, because it was almost overwhelming the first time I heard it. And you always remember your first, like I said. About the keyboards, would you like to talk about the actual instrument that you play? Because it's quite a massive machine, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that all the stuff I have is pretty much old and common. There's nothing special about the equipment. And sometimes people ask me, how do I make it sound like that? What kind of devices I use? And once there was this keyboard player from another band who had exactly the same devices. But there's no mystery in them. It's just keyboard modules, and I've spent some time setting up the sounds, and I'm using 4 sound sources at the same time, and I'm mixing them in a small mixer there, and that's about it. There's nothing kind of special in the. I don't use any special device that would make a different sound. Kind of anyone could buy all the same things for $1,000 on eBay.
I thought that maybe it was chosen for a theater because it's so massive on stage.
Well, the keyboard stand and the rack system, whatever I have there, it's all kind of handmade, made for purpose kind of stuff. So when I do have to have the pedal board, and I need the mirror to see the others, so I built the stand first from steel, but it's too heavy to fly with, and now I have another one made of aluminium for these things. But kind of that's all frame. The instruments are nothing kind of exotic. When you think of it, when I started using keyboards, it was us 4 we had a guitarist, drummer, and me. And we had the songs that we had written with 2 guitars, and we transformed them. So kind of the role of the keyboards was to be the second guitar. And then when I listen to some of the songs, and especially some of the later songs, sometimes there are parts that are first played on the guitar and then come back to keyboards and so on. So that's one thing. Kind of we're just having 4 people in the band, so I had to play more than a normal keyboardist. And on the other hand, I've been interested in the pipe organs and kind of the style of playing with both hands and your feet at the same time. So kind of that shaped.
What about
as well?
What about your history as your musical education? Were you Baroque style?
No, my musical education is 90s death metal and learning to play the guitar at the rehearsal room. I never studied music in any way, but kind of well, let's say formally. I didn't take any playing lessons or whatever, but I've been studying the history of the organ and that sort of thing.
All right, and vocally, there was no pre-Skepticism band. I was wondering how you instantly became so powerful.
No, I get the call from Lasse to come to this band and start to sing, and I was asking him how I do it. He showed me do like this. I said, okay, I'll try, and that's the way to learn. And I don't know why it's so powerful.